What is going on, everybody? It is Treeb from Treeb Talks here, and we are back to discuss Kill Tony guests for the month of August, and we are going to be ranking everybody who joined the guest panel on the world's biggest live podcast, Kill Tony, and ranking them from worst to best. So we had episodes 675 through 678 in the month of August. And we have a total of 8 guests to rank here. And we are going to be going over each of them and how much they contributed to the show and who did the best and who did the worst. Starting off with the bottom ranked guest for the month of August for Kill Tony is, without a doubt, Chad Daniels.
Stressed.
Chad, have you seen William before?
I haven't.
How are you, Chad?
I'm great.
Cool. What do you do? Are you a comedian or what do you do?
Oh my God, William!
In his appearance on 676. Chad Daniels, after he showed up to Kill Tony, seemed like it scarred him for life. I mean, he went on his own podcast, I believe. It was his own podcast or a different podcast to talk about how he felt like William Montgomery was going to beat him up. You know, if you are a stand-up comedian and you are going on a comedy podcast such as Kill Tony, you have to be kind of aware of these bits that these comedians are doing. And William Montgomery is one of the most non-threatening people that you will ever come across. And I just think it was so funny that he was just intimidated by him so much that he thought that he was actually going to get into a physical altercation with William. But he really started off not so well when he got into a beef with Martin Phillips right off the gate when he questioned his ability to drive. And apparently for Martin Phillips, that is a big no-no. That is a super ignorant thing to say to somebody with cerebral palsy. And Chad Daniels tries to go to bat for himself, but Martin Phillips ends up, kind of winning that battle and getting more laughs. And Chad Daniels ends up shutting out, basically, for the rest of the podcast until William Montgomery comes out and just kind of ends his career from there on out. And I don't believe we will ever see Chad Daniels back on Kill Tony, which is completely fine. Wasn't a great guest and isn't a very good stand-up comedian, I have to say. I did end up watching his stand-up special, Empty Nester, following this, and it wasn't very good, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go out of your way to watch any of Chad Daniels' stand-up. It is not very good. And coming in at number 7 is going to be the guy that he was a guest with on 676, Sam Morril.
At your funeral, Jesus is going to look down and be like, cool.
I think Sam Morril kind of fell victim to a situation where it was awkward for Chad Daniels, and with him being awkward, it made Sam Morril's time a little awkward. He's a guy that's been on the show before, is a guy that has delivered from time to time, has been a good guest on Kill Tony before. So, this time around, it wasn't his best showing, and it's probably because of who he had to go and sit next to for this time with Chad Daniels. So I think Sam Morril, if he were to come back in the future, I think he would have a much better time with somebody else or even a solo guest, because a lot of the time, either his jokes weren't landing or, he was pretty quiet for a lot of this episode. This is a very kind of Tony and Red Band heavy episode, and like I said when I was ranking the July guests, that's kind of the sign that the guests aren't really doing their job, especially when Red Band says a lot in an episode. You really don't want Red Band to say anything, you just want them to play untimely sound effects. And in this one, had a lot of stuff to say. So, no doubt about it, in August, the bottom 2 guests of the month were definitely Chad Daniels and Sam Morril. Coming in at we got 8, 7, 6. Number 6. On number 675, I have William Montgomery.
No false advertising here. You should probably just work at a Lululemon, bitch. Holy shit. And also, what could I have done differently during my performance on Friday in Paris? What do you think? Did you watch? Did you see what I did?
It was funny that he, got painted up like the guy from the Olympics, or how William Montgomery got painted for the Olympics, I should say. But other than that, he was pretty quiet. Like, the whole entire episode, didn't say a whole heck of a lot. Really let Gary Falcon take the bulk of this episode, but it's kind of leaned in to these new kind of gimmick episodes that Kill Tony has had. I mean, you had the Joe Biden, Donald Trump episode. Now you have William Montgomery in this Olympic garb along with Gary Falcon. It was a good episode of Kill Tony. As you'll see, Gary Falcon's not going to appear till much later on in this list. But William Montgomery, very quiet in this episode. I think he's better as a closer, as somebody that talks to the guests on the panel. Not really the best panelist in the world. And I think this was a good example of that, and why he should just continue to do stand-up for Kill Tony and not necessarily be a panelist for the show. Coming in at number 5, and we are getting into the top 5, and this was one of the better episodes of the month. I think probably the best episode of the month, but the worst guest on that panel, I have Kim Cogden.
Howdy belly button.
No, I got any. I want one of them. I'm not that bad, all right?
Kids that bite, they have outies.
Yeah, niggas don't make out the hood with added belly buttons, all right?
Somebody that kind of picked her spots, right? The first regular on Kill Tony comes back to do a guest spot to be on the panel with Tyler Fisher and Jordan Peterson. A weird, unique group of 3 to be on the panel for a Kill Tony episode, but they meshed really well together. And I think Jordan Peterson and Tyler Fisher kind of took the reins in this one. But when Kim did decide to speak up, say her part, and kind of deliver the jokes, she was pretty spot on. She was pretty funny. But just not a whole lot of heavy-hitting material in this one for me to put her in the top 3 or the top 4, at least not with Jordan Peterson and Tyler Fisher, who had really, really good episodes as guests and as panelists in this one. But Kim Cogden is another person that you should check out if you haven't checked out her comedy, and is somebody that had a pretty good, solid appearance on Kill Tony number 677. Coming in at number 4, and somebody I was surprised did so well, I have Whitney Cummings on 678.
Will literally be like, I have an answer.
Yeah.
And they'll say it to you.
Yeah.
Matt Rife became a millionaire off that.
I am not the biggest fan of Whitney Cummings, but her and Tony are good friends, and they've known each other for a long time, so they're always going to have some sort of dynamic. They're always going to work on an episode of Kill Tony together. So I don't know why I was super surprised that I enjoyed this episode, but she was a little bit more bearable, I guess. There's been times where Whitney Cummings has been, either on Kill Tony, Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, anything like that, where I can't really stand her. But this time around, she was a little bit more bearable. She was a little bit more funny. And I enjoyed that episode, and it was just her as well. And you're going to see that too with I think a lot of comedians kind of in this realm. It kind of makes or breaks them, or it kind of brings out the better version of them, or it kind of brings out the worst version of them. Chad Daniels, a good example of somebody who it brought the worst version out of. Matt Rife, another great example of somebody who kind of, I think, performed very well under the Kill Tony pressure. He's a guy I don't really like his stand-up, at all. Haven't really liked a single one of his stand-up specials. Don't like his crowd work. Don't really like him as a comedian, but he did a very good job on the last episode of Kill Tony. And I think Whitney Cummings, another good example of somebody who kind of thrives in that element and did very, very well, messing with the acts, playing off of Tony, and, made for a really good episode of the show. So I got her at number 4. Coming in the top 3, I have Gary Falcon from 675, one of the most beloved characters in the Kill Tony universe.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Logan Palsy.
aka Nick Swartzen, and he did a great job all the way up into his leave. A beautiful Irish exit, executed perfectly when he said he had to pee, and then he just left. Executing a perfect Gary Falcon exit. He was funny throughout. Calling Drew Nickens Logan Palsy was hilarious. And, I love Nick Swartzen as a stand-up comedian. As an actor, obviously, he's one of my favorite movies, Benchwarmers. So, can never get enough of him. So that was a great thing to see him as a guest on 675. Going into my top two, and these two were a guest on the same episode. And going in at number 2, I have Jordan Peterson from 677.
Degree where you don't need to be smart.
All degrees are like that now.
Jordan Peterson was a shocker for me. He does a lot of shows with these comedians, but, Kill Tony, a little bit different than just sitting down and talking to a comedian, either about their problems, their past, or just what they got going on in their life. But he took that route and talked to the stand-up comedians that were doing the comedy and, talked to them about, what they had going on in their life. And he dropped some funny jokes as well. Jordan Peterson delivered in his episode more than you could ever ask for like a stand-up comedian. And he was, he's not in that realm. But, he's been, with the Rogans, the Theo Vaughns. But for him to come on to Kill Tony and really just accept the universe for what it is and be funny and take it in full stride, he did a great job. And I hope he comes back on. He was a fun guest, and I'm very excited to see if he comes back on to the show. And coming in at number 1, my favorite guest from this month on the same episode, I have Tyler Fisher.
Maybe that's...
Do you smoke weed?
Oh,
Yeah.
a lot of that. Yep.
Are you attracted to your mom at all when you're high?
No, just when I'm sober. Okay.
And I thought he was just delivering joke after joke after joke, hit after hit after hit. He was on fire, in my opinion, and was one of the guys, that I look at after this and say, I'm going to look up his stuff. I did, and he is now, one of my favorite up-and-coming comedians to me. Up-and-coming comedians to me. Like, I'd never heard of him before, but now I have, and now I kind of look up a lot of his stuff. And, I'm very well familiar with Tyler Fisher now. And I wouldn't have been that way if it wasn't for Kill Tony. And I think he had a great episode and a great showing when he was on 677. And really, Kill Tony had a great bunch of episodes here. With the exception of the Sam Morril, Chad Daniels episode. Not a great episode. But other than that, 675, 77, 78... those were great episodes, so a very solid month of August, as well as, you got to count the Madison Square Garden shows, which I will be talking about here in the near future, which were also fantastic, and I can't wait to dive into those with you guys, and much more of the Kill Tony universe. Thank you guys again for tuning into another video, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.